Hi guys, and welcome back to Spaceboy by David Walliams. I might read a couple of chapters or maybe more this time. Got a nice evening ahead, so plenty of time to read a little bit more as well. So let's get going. This is all David Walliams' own work. I'm just reading it for entertainment and pleasure, or pleasure, whatever you prefer. This is Chapter 5, A Sea of Crumpled Paper. Ruth's mind was whirring. If Aunt Dorothy didn't have a clue where she was going, then she must not have heard of the flying saucer crash. The old crocodile was little deaf, so it made sense. But how long could this be kept a secret? "Just to fetch a cup of water, Aunt Dorothy," spluttered Ruth in reply. The old lady scoured the tiny attic room and fixed her gaze on the bedside table. "You have my cup of water right next to your bed. I mean, my bed." Ruth was not the best actress, but she pretended to be surprised. "Oh, do I? Silly me. And you've got my old boots on your feet, have I?" "Yes," snapped Aunt Dorothy. "Oh, I have. I thought that my feet are heavier than usual. Shoes can do that." This cheek made the old crocodile sneer. "Boots mean you're up to something, Ruth. You are nothing but a nasty little liar." Ruth smiled nervously before blushing as red as a prize tomato. She didn't want Aunt Dorothy to find out about the UFO. The old lady disapproved of her obsession with outer space. If Aunt Dorothy knew a flying saucer had crash-landed on the farm, she would reach for her shotgun, and before you know it, blam, blam, blam! All this had to remain Ruth's secret. "You've been wide awake all night, staring through that stupid telescope of yours, haven't you, Ruth?" demanded Aunt Dorothy. "You've got chores in the morning. I want you mucking out the ostriches at dawn. Enough is enough." She marched across the attic and snatched the telescope. "Please don't," begged Ruth, fearing the worst. Like a strong man at the fair, Aunt Dorothy bent the telescope over her knee. Using all her might, she snapped it in two. Snap! That's Tears bloomed in Ruth's eyes. "Why?" she asked. "To teach a nasty little worms like you a lesson," snarled Aunt Dorothy. Her eyes spun around Ruth's little bedroom. Spying the pictures of Yuri Gangren stuck to the walls, she stalked over to them. "All this outer space nonsense," she yelled. "It's not for girls. Makes me think there's something wrong with you. It has to stop." Aunt Dorothy stretched out her hand, displaying her long, sharp nails. Talons, really. She placed her hand at the top of one of the pictures before turning around and offering Ruth the wickedest grin. "Please," pleaded Ruth. But it was no use. The woman loved cruelty. Rip came down the first picture. Rip! Then the second. Rip, rip, rip. Ruth couldn't watch any more. She closed her eyes. Now it was a frenzy of destruction. Rip, 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 rip. Yuri was a spirited soul and began barking at the old lady. Ruff, ruff, ruff. He bit on the bottom of her dress. Chomp! Aunt Dorothy turned around and kicked out her dog as hard as she could. Boot! Yuri leaped out of the way and Ruth scooped him up in her arms. "Don't you dare hurt Yuri," she shouted. "Oh, I do dare, I do." Rip, rip, rip. Now the floor was a sea of crumpled paper. "If I catch you out of bed again tonight, Ruth, it will be you I rip to pieces." Aunt Dorothy strode out of the attic and slammed the door behind her. Bam! This spite made Ruth even more determined to defy her aunt. "Come on, Yuri," she whispered, as she wiped away her tears with her sleeve. "We are going to have our own secret adventure." Chapter 6, A Kaleidoscope of Shadows. With Yuri perched on her shoulders, Ruth shimmied down the wonky drain pipe on the side of the farmhouse. From a distance you might have thought the girl was wearing a furry scarf. Ruth went super slowly past Aunt Dorothy's bedroom window. The curtains were drawn. The old lady hadn't spotted the fire and smoke at the far end of the farm. Peering through the slim gap in the curtains, Ruth spied her standing dead still in her bedroom with her ear trumpet to her ear, pointing up at the attic room. She looked like a crocodile lurking under the water, ready to snap. Ruth carried on down the drain pipe. On reaching the ground, she set Yuri down as gently as possible so he didn't make a sound. Clink, clink, clink went Yuri as he walked along the path that led away from the farmhouse. Silly me, Ruth thought. She'd forgotten about Yuri's egg whisk leg, so she scooped up the dog in her arms and stepped over the bits of broken camera. When they were out of earshot, or rather ear trumpet shot, of the farmhouse, Ruth set Yuri down again. Despite only having 3 legs and 1 egg whisk, the little dog kept up with Ruth's breathless pace. Together they raced past the chicken coop, the pigsty, and the ostrich pen. They tiptoed round the sleeping cow and bull before crossing the golden field of wheat to the crashed side. The spot was pinned by a plume of black smoke. The smoke was so thick that it blotted out many of the stars in the night sky. Ruth's heart was beating fast. Her head was spinning. Her legs felt like jelly, and any moment now she'd be the first person on Earth to meet an alien. Soon the first pieces of debris from the flying saucer came into view. Smouldering shards of metal had flattened and blackened into golden wheat. The debris from the flying saucer was spread over a wide area. It had been a monster crash. Even as more pieces revealed themselves, Ruth found that it's impossible to work out what went where on this alien spacecraft. After a short while, Ruth reached the main point of the impact. The flying saucer hit the earth hard and fast. It gouged out the ground and was now half buried in the soil. There were clumps of little fires burning all around it. Ruth clambered up onto what was left of the flying saucer, which was poking out at a sharp angle. At first her boots slipped and slid on the slope, but soon she made it up the glass pod that squatted on top of the spacecraft. The flickers and flames, the smoke, the dark, the night together created a kaleidoscope of shadows. It was hard to know what was real and what was not. Suddenly, Ruth felt a stab of fear. She was relieved to feel her little dog brushing right up against her leg. Yuri always made her feel safe, or safer at least. The glass of the pod was cracked and blackened with soot from the fire. It was impossible to see if the figure Ruth had spotted from the roof of the farmhouse just moments ago was still inside. Slowly she reached out her hand to touch the pod. Yuri was clearly spooked by the thought of Ruth touching the thing, as she could feel her little friend tugging on her pajama trousers to stop her. However, she was headstrong, and despite the danger she placed her hand around on the glass. "Ouch!" she exclaimed. It was blazing hot like the handle of a saucepan on the stove. Well, the flying saucer must have burned through the Earth's atmosphere. Ruth knew from reading about Yuri Gangren's journey that re-entering the Earth's atmosphere was the most dangerous part. Although Gangren ended up landing safely back on Earth, the Vostok one had glowed red from the hellish heat. "Woof!" barked Yuri at Ruth, as if to say, "I told you so." All right, not everyone is as smart as you." Next, Ruth yanked the sleeve of her pajamas down and wiped the soot off the glass with it. Soon there was a small clear patch on the black. In the black, Ruth peered through the pod to see if there was any sign of life. There was none. Just as Ruth was about to turn away, a gloved hand thumped on the glass. "Doof! Doof! Ah!" she screamed. Chapter 7. A Billion Questions. The shock made Ruth topple backwards. She tripped over Yuri and tumbled off the flying saucer. Ah! The relief of finally being on the ground immediately evaporated when Ruth discovered her bottom was on fire. Owie! She was lying in one of the smouldering craters left by the crash. She leaped up and began hopping from foot to foot, slapping her own bottom. Thwack, thwack, thwack. Whatever was in the pod chose this as its moment to escape. The cracked glass was smashed by a gloved fist. Shatter! Out climbed the thing. Its body was surprisingly short. Up to its shoulders it was no taller than Ruth, and she was small for her age. However, its helmet towered into the sky. It was probably half as tall again as the alien's body. There had to be a bizarre-looking creature under there. Yuri clambered up on the flying saucer and scuffled over the mysterious figure. The little dog began jumping up and down, yapping. "Woof, woof, woof!" The alien looked truly out of this world. His outfit would be perfect for the bitter cold of space, not so much a balmy summer night in the American Midwest. Every part of the alien's body was covered, although there was a reflective glass slot in the helmet for it to see out. But how many eyes did this thing have from outer space? 1, 2, 3, 300. Its head looking big enough for 3,000. Then there's a picture of it, and here's the labels. Silver helmet. Breathing tube from the helmet to the space chute. Silver space suit, silver boots. Breastplate with coloured buttons. Thick silver gloves. Silver cape. Ruth's brain was buzzing with a billion questions. She blurted them out at dizzying rate. "What planet are you from? What is it like in outer space? Is it cold? Do you need a sweater? Can I come and visit one day? Did you stop off on Mars on the way? Why did you choose Earth? Is there life on Mars? What's your name? My name is Ruth. Are you green or blue or red or maybe even purple? Purple would be cool. Do you come in peace? Are you planning to destroy the Earth? Have you ever met Yuri Gangren? So, please could I have this autograph? Two, please. One for me and one for my dog. He's called Yuri too. My dog's named after him, not the other way round. Do you have special powers? Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Can we be pen pals? Have you been to any other planets? Have you been to the moon? One day can I have a ride in the flying saucer? Do you have an awful aunt? I do. I hope you never meet her. Have you seen an ostrich? Oh, have you ever been sucked inside a black hole? Is it very dark in there? Do you have candy in outer space? Does your planet revolve around the sun just like Earth does? Will you be my friend? But before the alien could answer any of these, it bent down to stroke Yuri and clutched its knee in pain. Ugh! No doubt it had been injured in the crash. The flying saucer had come down so fast and so hard that the alien was lucky to be alive. The thing began hobbling down from the pod before losing its footing and tumbling down to the ground. Thud. Oh, I nearly forgot. Welcome to planet Earth, said Ruth. Her little dog was not so welcoming and growled at the mysterious figure. Grrr. It's all right, Yuri, said Ruth. Now the alien was clutching its knee and lying in the field. Let me help you, said the girl, and she reached out her hand to help the alien up. It looked down at her hand and hesitated for a moment. Then it began to stretch out its hand to meet hers. This would be the first handshake between a human and an alien. Their hands were just about to meet when kaboom! Chapter 8 Exploded Cigar. There was a mighty explosion. What was left of the flying saucer burst into flames. Woof! Woof! Without thinking, Ruth wrapped her arms around the thing, leaped away from the blast, and propelled them both to the ground. Oof! Like a fire blanket, she covered the alien and her dog as a blast of flames swept over them. Ruth closed her eyes, but could feel her hair being singed by the intense heat. Crackle! Woof! 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 Howled Yuri in pain. The tip of his tail had been scorched. Sizzle! Now his tail looked like an exploded cigar. And then there's a picture of it. The little dog wiggled free of Ruth's grasp and darted off in the direction of the well. He barked all the way, running as fast as his three little legs could and one egg whisk could carry him. Yuri! Cried Ruth after him. However, the little dog was clearly startled by having his tail set alight and was not going to stop any time soon. He disappeared off across the field and out of sight. Oh no! Ruth spotted lights flicker in the farmhouse. Aunt Dorothy must have heard the explosion. Ruth didn't have much time. Any moment now, her aunt would be stalking across the fields with her shotgun. She turned her attention to the alien. Are you all right? She asked. All she did was moan. Ugh! And then kaboom! There was another blast behind her. Woof! The heat made her feel as if her black back were being flame-grilled like a burger. It wasn't safe being this near to the flying saucer. There was every chance it could explode again. More fuel could catch fire at any moment. Ruth scrambled to her feet and reached out her hand again to help the alien up. It put its hands in hers. First contact. This is history, chirped Ruth. Shaking hands on Earth is a sign of friendship. Does this mean we are friends? The alien nodded its head. Ruth smiled the biggest smile. Yes, she exclaimed. It was a giant yes. Ruth had never had a friend before. An alien from another planet wasn't who she was expecting to be her first friend. She thought it might be a girl with a wonky fringe who collected stamps. Still, she wasn't going to argue. Magnificent, she said. And friends look out for each other. Here. Ruth heaved the alien to its feet. Immediately its knee buckled. Ah! It cried as it toppled forward. The girl caught it in her arms. With all her strength she held it up. I've got you, she said. But she hadn't. The alien couldn't stand on its knee. Instead, it slipped out of her arms and toppled and sloped down the ground. Thumped. Darn! She cried. Just then she spotted a shadowy figure in the distance. It was coming from the direction of the farmhouse. Ruth! Came a shout. She'd have known that voice anywhere. It was one of course, Aunt Dorothy. Bang! Just as Ruth had thought, the old lady had brought her shotgun, and she wasn't afraid to use it. Bang! 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 She was firing warning shots into the air. Ruth was going to have to hide her new friend and fast, like Faster than fast, like really fast. Fast! Chapter 9, Frazzled. The flying saucer had crashed on a stone's throw away from an old desert hay barn. It was just one handful of Aunt Dorothy's farm buildings that had fallen into despair, and right now it was Ruth's best bet for hiding place. So she pretended not to hear her aunt's shouts. Ruth! Ruth, where are you? I hope that plane crashed right on top of your head. I bought my shotgun in case it's Russians. Don't think you've gotten away with smashing my camera to bits. Wait until I get my hands on you. Ruth also ignored the warning shots Aunt Dorothy was still firing into the sky. Bang, bang, bang! She dragged the alien across the field by its feet. Oof, 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 it moaned as its head banged on the ground. In the meantime, they reached the barn. Ruth pushed open the crumbling wooden door with her back. Creak! She dragged it inside, then hoisted it up from underneath its armpits before lowering it gently onto some bales of hay. Oof! Cried the alien in relief. The of the barn had caved in years ago, so now it was a little more collection of crumbling walls. However, right now it was the best hiding place for an alien. Wait here, Ruth whispered, not that the figure looked capable of anything other than lying right there. I'll be back. There was a little nod of the tall helmet, followed by a moan. Ah! The alien raised a hand as if to implore her to stay. I promise, added Ruth. She rested a hand on the alien's shoulder for reassurance. I have never let a friend down. Well, I've never had a friend, but if I'd ever had one, I'd never have let them down. The alien tilted its head like a dog trying to understand its master. Next, Ruth tiptoed back across the door. She peered round it to see if the coast was clear, and then stepped out into the gloom. A figure was standing in the shadows, holding a shotgun. It was the dreaded Aunt Dorothy. Who were you talking to? Demanded the old lady. No one, replied Ruth, a little too rapidly to appear innocent. No one? You could have been talking to no one. I might be a little deaf, but I heard voices. You were hiding someone in my barn. Aunt Dorothy stalked over the door, which was dangling off its hinges. She pushed it open with the end of her shotgun. Creak! Just as she stepped inside, kaboom! Out in the field, what was left of the flying saucer exploded once again. Another fireball lit up the entire farm. A black cloud of smoke mushroomed into the sky. The wheat field caught fire. Woof! Fire! Shouted Aunt Dorothy as she stumbled out of the barn. Fire! There's no fire station for miles, cried Ruth. We'll have to put it out ourselves, or my whole farm will burn to the ground. Do something, you lazy slob. This way, shouted Ruth, leading Aunt Dorothy by the wrist clear of the barn. To the well. Once they arrived at the farm's well, Ruth saw her little dog was there. Yuri was nursing its singed tail in a bucket of water, a look of sweet relief on his face. I am sorry, Yuri, cried Ruth. We are going to need that bucket. Quick, let's form a chain. Soon the girl had assigned places for everyone. Aunt Dorothy put down her shotgun and filled the bucket from the well. Then Yuri carried the bucket, its handle between his teeth. Finally, Ruth hurled the water from the burning stalks of wheat. Sploosh! Sizzle! The empty bucket would be given back to Yuri, and the whole process started again. It was dawn by the time there was nothing more than large patches of smouldering black on the wheat field. The fire was out. All three were frazzled. None had slept a wink. They were all covered in soot from the fires. You would be forgiven for thinking that Yuri was a little black dog rather than a little white dog. The sun rose over the rolling fields, bathing everyone with red light. Grimacing at its brightness, Aunt Dorothy barked at her niece. Ruth! I don't want no soot in my house. Stand still. Ruth did what she was told. She knew what was coming. This was what Aunt Dorothy called bath time, and Ruth only got one once a year. The girl closed her eyes and stretched out her arms. A moment later, a shock of cold water from the bucket drenched her. Splash! Huh? Ruth took a sharp breath at the chill. When she opened her eyes, she looked down at her soaking pajamas. The soot from her hair and face was now running down her front. All Aunt Dorothy had done was make her dirtier than before. And don't think you can come inside dripping filthy water everywhere. You have to dry off before you set foot inside, ordered Aunt Dorothy. Now, what was I about to do? I know, check the barn. With that, Aunt Dorothy picked up her shotgun and marched back over the barn, a dripping Ruth trailing in her wake. Wait, wait, cried the girl, but she was ignored. In no time, they reached the barn door. Let me go first, protested Ruth. Get out of my way, barked Aunt Dorothy, shoving her aside. She stormed into the barn, wielding her shotgun. Bang! Bang! Okay, guys, I'm going to stop there today. The next chapter will be called A Trail of Blood, but I'm going to just give it a stop there. Thank you so much again for listening, and bye-bye until the next time.